Welcome to Roundtable Talk, presented by Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. This is a podcast where JCPS students get to talk about topics that matter to us. In a world where we hear from adults about things that directly impact students, this is our opportunity to have our voices heard.
So you all, the episode of Roundtable Talk for today, thank you for being here. My name is Belinda Moore Rodriguez. The episode of Roundtable Talk today is going to specifically focus on these two men who we feel are so pivotal to the month of January. If you know, January 17th would have been Muhammad Ali's 80th birthday, and January 17th is also the day that we observe Martin Luther King Jr. So in light of today's episode, I want us to think about these two men. And then I also want to think about these compelling questions that we have over here to the left. So these questions are here to help guide our conversation today as we think about the service that has come from these two men that you see on the screen. So thinking about that very first question, you all, what would our community look like if we used love as a vehicle to reach liberation? When we think about that word liberation, what does that mean? What comes to mind when you think of liberation?
When I think of liberation, I think of freedom, and I also think of a world where we're not really bound by societal norms or stereotypes. And I think of it as a world where we can just live as free as we possibly could.
I agree with her, like living as free as you can, like not worrying about having to be judged or like racially profiled or like just dealing with problems that we face when it comes to like just stereotypes in general.
Yeah, I think all of our definitions really are around the same thing. Just being able to have control over your life, being able to make your own choices, and having that freedom and equality. I think all of our definitions really have that in similar.
So when we think about that liberation piece, I'm thinking about specifically the way that these men led their lives and the principles and the things that guided them to do what they felt was right. When I think about Martin Luther King Jr. and his principles, I always think about that nonviolent piece, because that was the way that he decided that he wanted to bring awareness to a topic, bring awareness to injustice. He felt like having that nonviolence piece. So think about some of their principles and what they stood for. When we think about Muhammad Ali, when we think about Martin Luther King, what did they think about as liberation? Like what would have been kind of their ideas of seeing that happen in their lives?
I feel like for Dr. Martin Luther King, when you talk about him, like his way was peaceful protest. Like he didn't feel like violence would solve. So his whole thing was kind of everybody just show love no matter what you get back. So like killing everybody with kindness, basically. And so I just feel like he just wanted, if he felt like if everybody like did everything peacefully, even with negativity going on, he would be able to like spread a positive change around the world, regardless of like the criticism he faced for it. It was based off his beliefs. He was doing what he felt like would work best for his community. And I feel like he would be proud of the progress that we've made, but there's still a lot more progress that needs to be made. But we have came far from where we was back then.
He even said something like nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. And just thinking about that makes me think of him even in a different way. Nonviolence is something that is what courageous people do.
I would agree with what you said with the last statement, because I feel that nonviolence, or sometimes not coming at people the same way they came at you, or returning, sometimes people say reciprocating the same energy or what you get back is viewed as like just accepting the disrespect, or it's viewed as being soft or weak, or just in general not handling the issue. But I think he's right. I feel like it does take courage to step up and really, after all, like the pain and the anger and just all of the negative feelings about a situation, sometimes it's so hard to overcome those feelings. And it really takes courage, and it takes willpower, and it really takes a strong mindset to say, I'm not going to return, or I'm not going to reciprocate what I got back. I want to put something good back into the world. So I feel like, as Martin Luther King says, that it takes so much courage. And I feel like it also connects back to Muhammad Ali on this point, because I feel like courage in speaking out against things that he didn't like, he had more of a he acknowledged issues and he addressed them at their forefront. So I feel like speaking on that, I think they kind of connected both there. And I just think they did a really great job of showing that you don't always have to be upfront or in someone's face when addressing issues, and sometimes taking a knee is better than putting up the fight.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. That was kind of, they both really come together at that front, especially because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was an optimist, right? But not only in the sense just putting a positive spin on things, right? But MLK really acknowledged the dark times he was going through. He acknowledged that there were problems to be solved, and he acknowledged the fact that he had the ability to challenge those problems, the fact that if he believed himself, he could create the change in the world, he could stop those problems. There's actually a quote from him that says that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. So not only did he acknowledge that there were problems, but he was courageous enough to confront those problems, and that too through the use of nonviolence. And I think that's something that we can all take from both of these leaders. They have created so much change in our world, and it's because of these ideologies that they used.
To go back to the courage thing, they both definitely showed a lot of courage. I know, connecting to Muhammad Ali, when he chose not to go, when they tried to draft him into the war and he chose not to go because of his beliefs. You have to have courage, because they threatened and they did take his career away from him for a long time, which is his way of living and how he provided for his family. So he had to come up with new ways to try to provide for his family. So that was one way he showed courage, just being able to stand up for his beliefs. And back to Martin Luther King, he definitely showed courage when, going out there, like knowing you're going to get attacked by dogs, knowing you're going to get sprayed with water hose, like, and still trying to be peaceful. It's kind of hard to try to contain yourself when all this stuff is happening, and okay, this is my beliefs. I feel like if we do it peacefully, nothing's going to happen, but still like having constant attacks on you and stuff, you definitely have to be like a very brave person.
Absolutely. And they, both of them had 6 different principles, and we can find some commonalities in both of them. And you all have already touched on several, but Julie, I think Julie and Prisha mentioned something about courage. And so actually one of Muhammad Ali's, one of his principles is conviction. And his definition of this kind of conviction is a firm belief that gives one the courage to stand behind that belief despite pressure to do otherwise. And so that directly correlates to him, not cooperating with the government and choosing to go and fight in a war where he felt like, why should I fight against people who are brown skinned and poor when we need to worry about the brown skin and the black skin folks in our country, and making sure they are taken care of and respected and treated like humans before I go and fight for someone else.
I feel like conviction is a word that's very powerful to the Black community when it comes to like having to stand up for what you believe in, because being an African American or being color, you're gonna obviously face like different obstacles every day. And sometimes it's kind of hard to stand up for what you believe in because you have to worry about the criticism you're gonna receive. So I feel like that's something that people of color deal with every day. So conviction can fall under everybody's principles in some type of way when it comes to standing up for your beliefs.
As far as both of these men go, I want to touch on Muhammad Ali. Another one of his principles, I'm going to touch back on the one we're talking about, but another one of his principles was spirituality. And I think it's kind of important to note that both of these men come from very different faiths, different belief systems, and yet they still manage to fight for the same cause. They still manage to push through. And Muhammad Ali, you may or may not know it, but Muhammad Ali came out as being Islam during a time when it was really looked down upon. I mean, and Martin Luther King, he was raised in a Christian household, and I feel like it's just inspiring that they stood strong in their faith, especially Muhammad Ali, at a time where staying strong in your faith and being of that religion was just looked down upon. So I feel like it's just inspiring to know that they continue to fight and continue to come back to their faith and continue to do what they thought was right, and even though they had two very different religions.
Absolutely. And I was just doing a little bit of research on my own, and I saw a story about Muhammad Ali, and there was a magazine who wanted him to pose in the way of something that may not have been what his religion would have accepted. And he said, I can't do this. I need to ask permission for this first. And so he asked permission to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, I think this will be a good thing for you. And then he moved forward. So even having the conviction to stand in what he believes in without that pressure piece. So remember, you're under pressure. You have to be strong. And he did that, and he stood strong for that.
Yeah, I think something really inspirational about both of them is that not only did they stood strong for their beliefs, but in order to do that, you need to first really believe in yourself. And so both of them they learn to not sell themselves short. They learn to really respect themselves and other people as well, and understand their worth and the fact that they had the ability to create this change. And I think something, especially for like young people right now, believing in ourselves can be sometimes difficult. So something that we can take from both of these amazing people is to really believe in yourself. Understand that you are more than capable of creating change. You are more than capable of challenging the problems that you see in your life today.
I wanted to go back to the magazine picture because I actually watched that video. And the picture was very like powerful. Like it kind of explained what he was going through, basically with like having his career taken away from him. Like if you go and look for the picture, it's kind of like he was kind of in chains and stuff. It was like a very, very powerful picture. If you looked at it, it explained what was going on during that time in his life.
So thank you all for your contribution. So we've talked about what does this liberation look like? What did it look like to them? What could it look like to us? But now I want to think, what can we do moving forward? We have this information, we know these things, we've looked at their principles, but when it comes to really honoring someone, how can we do that? How can we honor the folks who have fought so hard before us with service and action? What might that look like? What could we do?
I think first of all, really just the key thing here is to educate yourself about what these people have done in the past, what change they have created, and learning from them. JCPS has actually created a curriculum based off Muhammad Ali that's there to like help out in middle and high schoolers, and it's a really great curriculum. So if that curriculum were to be taught in schools, that would be a great way for students to get exposed to it and to be able to learn from these two amazing people.
So in JCPS, we really have been having a focus on what teachers teach and how they teach it. So Prisha just mentioned this curriculum. We have access to teach different things if we so choose. So this can be a choice that some of our teachers make when it comes to just having culturally responsive teaching. When we think of culturally responsive teaching, what does that mean? It means that we're thinking about our students. We're taking into consideration their interests, their backgrounds, who they are, what they love, what they want to be, and making sure that that is something that we can see in the classroom. But it's also making sure that we know who the folks are that have paved the way before us, who they are, what they stood for, so that we know that we have examples that we can look up to help us move forward in the future. So curriculum is one thing that we know that's going to help us make that change. But what else could be something that we could do?
I was gonna say two things to feed off of the curriculum thing. I think it's very important that teachers try to engage their students, especially when it comes to trying to, get them like interested in like topics. So trying to connect to your student and trying to teach students like a little bit of their history. That's really important because if a student doesn't know their history, it's kind of going to be hard for them to try to find their identity with themselves. Um, Another way I would say is just like Prisha has said, it kind of starts from you trying to look for yourself. So just start reading into stuff and find something topics that you think you're interested in. Even if it's not stuff that you're learning in school, you can educate yourself on plenty of things. We have the internet, use it for a good purpose. So we have plenty of access to different sources, especially with us being teenagers, phones, computers, laptops, all that stuff. You can easily go and search anything you want to learn about and find it yourself.
And then get involved in something, right? So it's if you have something that you're passionate about. So if you feel like, there's something in the Louisville community that you want to bring awareness to, how can you hook up to someone, a person or a group or something to let yourself be of service, to say, how can I help? I'd like to be interested. I'd like to be a part of this because I'm interested in making this whatever better for our city. So think about where we might be able to fit ourselves into doing something, because remember, we can't say we're about something. We can't say that, I care about all people. I want to make sure that, this is a certain way, and then we don't do anything. It's our job to do that action as well.
I think based on what everyone said, because I agree with everything everyone said so far, I feel like educating yourself is one thing, because like Julie said, we have access to all types of information at the touch of a fingertip. It's so fast, like there's so much stuff to learn about. And I feel like educating yourself is super important, but I feel like continuing on someone's legacy, the way we can continue on someone's legacy is sparking people to want to make a change. Because I don't know if everyone feels that way, but sometimes I feel like sometimes in like my weakest moments when I'm doubting myself, it's just like there's so much going on. There's so much stuff to change. Where do you even start? How can I be that much of a change? But I think to really get into change, we have to spark people to want to make a change and get people out of their comfort zone and bring it to awareness that small changes are changes too. And it's the small things that add up to big change. Not everything you do, your life doesn't have to mount up to something super big. If you just make one small thing, you've done something, and you've done something for the betterment. And I think sometimes when you hear about wanting to make a change and you see people, not that they didn't do great things, they did do great things, but sometimes it feels like I could never measure up to that. But I think we should start by letting people know that not all changes have to be grand and humongous and life-changing, and your name doesn't have to be heard all over the world to make a change. Sometimes you can make a change just by being there or reaching out or building community. So I feel like maybe we can start by addressing the fact that not all changes have to be big, and that as a community, maybe we can do better about uplifting people that want to make a change, and just do better about uplifting people in general, because sometimes it feels like when you want to do big things, you always have people that don't really want to see you doing big things, or don't really want the betterment of the community. But I think we just really need to start by making sure people want to make a change, not making people feel discouraged, and letting them know that not all changes have to be humongous or have to be great for them to be good.
Absolutely. And I really think that is just a great place for us to end it. You all are brilliant. Can I just say that? So thank you all for being here with us today. And we look forward to bringing you the next episode of Roundtable Talk. Thank you.